Okay, Jack, it's been over 14 months since we last got together, and I'd like to finish this up by going through the rest of the airplanes there and talking about them, and any recollections you have. I think we were starting with this airplane here. What do you remember about that one?
Well, that's of course a Piper Apache. It's a small Piper twin, which I found in a junk pile, I guess is the interesting thing about it. There were a pile of little airplanes up at the old Rome Airport, about 60 miles from where I lived. And we just walking by and saw it laying there and the doors swinging open. So we got the registration off of it and looked around and found the guy that owned it, and we never did know why he left it there, just abandoned. But he was on a travel trip when we found him, and he was coming through Atlanta. So my friend and I went down to meet him and told him we had found this junk airplane up in there and wondered if he was registered his name and wanted to sell it. And he said, yeah, but surprised us very much. He wanted $6,000 for it. We looked at it, we thought it was worth about $1,000. But he said, when he said that, I guess I had a little different view. Anyhow, got the nerve up and bought it, and really didn't have any trouble at all getting it fixed up. It wasn't bad at all. It just been, never can't figure out why in the world it was just left there abandoned. I guess he had a life crisis of some kind and just left it. Somebody else at the airport had moved it over the junk pile. But the swinging door was loose, and all we had to do is just prise it up and get it to fit, and check the engines over, and put a little oil in and gas, and jacked it up. We got some jacks and jacked it up and checked the gear gear retraction, and it all worked. Everything worked fine. So we worked on it 2 or 3 weekends and got it running and checked out, and everything was fine. So I got in by myself and flew it back to McCollum, which was about 60 miles, I said, and then worked on it for about a year there myself. And work as we did mostly was just clean up and touch up type thing. Got it doing fine, and flying a little bit, and then we started improving it, I guess we should say. We started fixing it up best we could, had an interior put in it. And, well, that wasn't the first thing, because this last window in Apache, there was no window there. That's not there, not natural. So we got a kid from Seguin, Texas, that sold Apache things and put that window in it. And then we started putting an interior in it and checking out all the instruments and everything. Had one of the engines, left engine had a top overhaul on it, and then got it to about where this picture shows in. That is just a minimum fix-up, you might say. I wish we had a picture right now of the end point of that. We had about, I guess we didn't have it about probably $8,000 in the airplane at that time, but we started really fixing it up then and ended up with $25,000 in it. Took it down to Seguin, had them put all the mods they could on it, and had it painted. Then the interior, I said it had already been, but we finally had to take it up to Toccoa, Georgia, where there's a guy doing interiors, and he fixed the interior, and it became a really deluxe Apache at that time. And then we sold it. I guess we kept it 2 or 3 years and sold it for, I believe, $35,000.
Now that one had a fin mod on it, didn't it?
That was part of the Seguin mod.
Yeah, it doesn't show it on there, does it?
No, it doesn't. It's just a dorsal.
Yeah, dorsal fin.
Here and a dorsal way up to about here.
Yeah, that's taken before the dorsal was
That's
added.
right. That's for all the Seguin mods, except the window. Of course, we did the window ourselves. That's a Seguin mod, but we had to buy the kit from them. We just had to go to scissors and cut the metal around there.
How long did you end up owning that plane?
It's hard for me to fix that, but I'd say probably 10 years altogether.
Uh-huh. So you got some cross-country time on that baby, huh?
Oh yeah, I had a lot of good trips with it. More than anything, I had time to get my buddy multi-engine time. It didn't cost him much, just buy gas in.
Okay, you were starting to tell me about how well it flew. It was a good handling plane.
I think I was saying it was just a real nice airplane that had good cruise speed, and good range, and of course good roomy cabin and plenty of instrument panel for radios and things. Just a real nice airplane. I think I was saying that I didn't think much of Pipers before I had that for a while, and came to value it a great deal. It was a very nice airplane, and at the price, of course, didn't pay much for this one, but for the price they averaged, I think they sold on the average on the traded plane in those days. They sold for around 30 to 40,000, something like that.
Of course, the competitor was the Cessna 310, wasn't it?
Yes, but not direct. The Cessna 310 cruised at 220.
Yeah.
This cruised at 160.
Yeah. I was going to say the Cessna was way faster.
Much faster.
Yeah.
Same capacity and everything, just bigger engines and more speed. A lot more fuel consumption. This is pretty, for a twin, it's pretty economical.
Okay, so to move to the next picture, so you can just press this arrow right here.
Okay. Okay, this picture's up at Greenville, South Carolina, where Pat Hartness lived and was, I started to say sponsoring RC at that time, but not sponsoring her. He just was a big benefactor for RC. He was an RCer. He was also a pilot, and he was also a heir to the Pepsi-Cola fortune. So he had this pretty big land there, and he had this nice strip. He had an 1,800-foot grass strip. He had a Spartan Executive and a Stearman and a Cub, 2 or 3 other airplanes of his own. But this picture represents one of his friends and me, the other friend in this yellow Cub. I can't remember his name, but he lived nearby there, and he had this Cub over at another field at Donaldson Air Force Base. And I had flown up from Marietta in the Cub, in the Super Cub, this is a 135 Super Cub. I had flown up there that day to fly RC, and this guy said, "Come on, get my airplane." So I flew him over to the field, which is about 10 miles away, and he picked up his plane, and I flew with him coming back to bring his airplane, this Cub, over there. And that's when we came back by the field there. And I don't know who's taking that picture. I can't make it out. I don't remember.
Okay.
But anyhow, we didn't even have Pat's Cub in there. They had his Cub on the field over here, but it was a Cub day at our RC field.
Okay, so why don't you just go ahead and hit this one right here, next to the right arrow. Yeah.
Okay, that's another Super Cub picture. That's a 150 horsepower Super Cub, and a totally different day and time and place and people.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Gene there, isn't it?
Huh?
Isn't that Gene there?
Yes, it is. And that's who's in it. It's Audrey Karlovic in it. John Karlovic's a friend of mine, and Josh is the pilot. No, that's not Audrey. I can't see good. That's Josh Powell in it, who was my partner in that airplane. We owned it together, 07 Bravo. And it was a junk airplane. That is, say we bought it up in Kentucky from a bunch of guys that were real junk dealers, and they had scrounged the parts, the wings here and the tail there, and I finally put it together after 2 or 3 years. And it was, fuselage was crooked, where they had welded, pieced together. And it was cheap, though. I've forgotten what we paid for it, but it was real cheap. It was a 150 Super Cub, as I say. And he was advertised, so Josh and I went up there and looked at it, and I flew it a little while, and we decided to buy it. I think we paid right around $20,000, pretty close to $20,000 for it. and which was way less than half price for a Super Cub in those days. So it was a real good buy. And then I flew it back to Georgia, and Josh drove. From then on, we both flew it together all the time.
Huh.
I remember this picture now. That was his school teacher when he was in the first grade up in Kentucky.
I'll be darned.
Where that picture was made.
Huh.
And we had flown back up there with it later because he had a lot of friends up there, and we flown up, and he went there, her little town somewhere, and found her and brought her out there and showed the airplane, bragging about him growing up to be a big boy, I guess, something like that, you know. She was an old lady, and Josh was a really big fella. You can see a little bit.
Yeah.
When we bought the airplane, he looked at it inside, it was okay, but I said, Josh, you can't get in a Super Cub in the first place. And he said, let me show you. So he got in the front seat and put his feet on the pedals, but he had to put his toes straight forward, feet flat on the floor, and push the rudder pedals and the brake pedals are there in the front, but he had to push the brake pedal, little brake pedal in the Cub with his toes, and then he could take his feet off and push the rudder pedal. So it was very awkward, I thought, for him, but he tried it before we bought it, and he said, I can do it fine, and we had it for 10 years, I think, and enjoyed it tremendously.
So the Super Cub has toe brakes?
Yes, all Cubs got toe brakes.
Yeah, that's way better than those stupid heel brakes on the Champ. I always had trouble trying to get those.
Well, that was toe brakes for that, but that's what we call heel brakes. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Oh, it was the same thing?
It was toe brakes for Josh because he was using his toes.
Oh,
That's what I was saying. He couldn't turn his ankles up that far. His feet must have been about 1.5 feet long. He's 6'8", something.
It's awful hard to hold the toe brake. I mean, to hold the heel brake and steer at the same time.
Yeah, but that's something you have to learn in Cubs. Yeah. True. But anyhow, that was always a wonderful experience for me because Josh came to me before we bought this airplane. He came to me as a person I'd never seen or heard of before. I was just at the airport, sitting out there talking to a few guys, and he walked up and introduced himself and told me he needed a little instruction. I said, well, what license you got? And he said, well, I got a multi-engine and instrument license. And I said, well, that's pretty good. And he said, no, I didn't either. So I got my instrument license. I can't fly instruments. And I got my multi-engine, and I never had an instructor and an examiner never shut an engine down. I just don't feel confident in flying other airplanes, but I got them, and I just decided I wanted to do better. And somehow your name came up, and so he came around. I said, well, I have to try to fly with you and see, but can't imagine how I would have any trouble about that. But the interesting thing about it, in the end, with kind of a little bit of a background, he turned out to be just a great, wonderful pilot, absolutely the best. Anything I could show him or ask him to do, he could do it instantly and do it perfectly.
Wow.
Never had to do it twice. So he was great. But that's not the end of the story. The end of the story is that he was afraid of flying, and himself and other people. He never would carry anybody else passengers up with him. I'm the only one that ever flew with him, unless I was with him. But he carried Gene and his wife up on a trip one day when I went with him. There were 4 of us. But if I wasn't there, he wouldn't go. He always called me his safety net.
Yeah. So he either flew solo or with you.
Yeah, that's it. And when I left Georgia, that red Cub in this one was parked in a hangar, and he never flew it again.
Wow.
So but he had it there for about, I guess, 6 or 8 years. 6 years, say, before he sold it. He finally sold it.
Yeah, that's a self-confidence story, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. It's hard to understand too, because he was an excellent pilot in every respect. But it's something that's stuck with me all the time, and I don't know why, because I just noticed it. I don't know. But my older friend there, that's been my friend there at the same place, flying the same airplanes and everything at that airport, for much longer than Josh. I met Josh about 1990, somewhere in there. And for about 10 years after that, until I left in 2001 to come out here. But my other friend, Wallace, is the same guy, same kind of person. He's a great pilot, but he's I won't say scared to death, but I don't know a shorter way to tell a story. He just got a hangback or something. He don't want to take chances. He won't try anything by himself. Won't try a new airplane. Won't go anywhere by himself. But if I go, off he goes and he flies great. Wallace is the one that owned the Piper Apache we just looked at with me, and he can fly it just great. But I don't know whether there's something about me made them depend on me. I hope not, but they never got over as far as I know.
I've only known you 14 years, but I can certainly identify with them. You tend to give people confidence in what they can do.
Well, maybe I can't deny that, but I hope that's true. But it don't seem like to me in my logic that would produce the person who wouldn't do it himself.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a mystery to me, but they were both just wonderful friends. Wallace was my earliest friend, and I taught him to fly originally. He was a high school kid when I met him. Taught him to fly, and he's been flying all. He's still flying in Georgia right now.
Wow. Yeah. I've heard you mention Wallace a lot.
Yeah, he's run through my whole story, in RC and big airplanes.
Right. Okay, let's try the next plane here. Oh, that's the same one.
That's the Apache again.
Yeah.
No dorsal, so it has not had this green mod yet.
Okay, let's try the next one.
This is a Kenner Sportster, made by a fellow, designed by Bert Kenner in the late 20s, a very, very early airplane.
You know, kind of a side note, I won't put this on the video, but you know, Jeremy has that fleet with the Kenner on it. And I was out at the RC field flying a month or two ago with Dave Meal, who's a very experienced full-scale pilot. And I heard a plane coming, and it was going put 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 put. And I said, I hear a Kenner engine.
Who said that?
I did.
You
I
did.
said, I hear a Kenner engine. And we started looking around, then we saw it was a biplane, and I said, well, the only biplane Kenner I know around here is Jeremy's. And as he got closer, I saw it was Jeremy's color. He's got that beautiful cream and maroon color scheme. And he flew right over us, and boy, you just, but, they got such a distinctive sound to them.
The Kenner engine had tremendous cylinder size, lots of power for the cylinders.
Yeah, and the exhaust pipe, there's no exhaust ring, no collector ring to muffle it in any way. The pipes just stick straight out in the air. So each one.
All kind of Kenner engines. Some did have collector rings.
Oh, did they?
They were available for them, but most people didn't put them on because it cut power a little bit.
Oh, I see.
But anyhow, this is a Kenner. This is a Kenner powered Kenner airplane. You're talking about a fleet airplane with a Kenner engine.
Right. This is all Kenner.
Yeah. No, fleet airplane.
No, but this is a Kenner plane and a Kenner
This is all
engine.
Kenner, that's right, by Bert Kenner.
Yeah.
Had little doors on the side of the cockpit there that opened up like that on both sides.
And it was side-by-side seating, wasn't it?
Yeah, very roomy cockpit. And it's open, you might say, but when you get in and fly, the windshield is just set so that there's just no airflow at all in the cockpit to bother you, blow on you, or keep from talking. It's really nice.
Did those have flaps?
No, just a wing.
Yeah.
That was in the 20s, and the flaps were not considered, I won't say they're non-existent, but as far as I know, they were not in existence and used for normal operation of an airplane in the 20s. They might have had a few on some airplanes. I don't know all the airplanes, but sure didn't hear any flaps till Lockheed came up with flaps on the Lodestar.
Oh.
And they were called Fowler flaps by a guy named Fowler, invented them, and Lockheed had to pay a patent to put them on there because they extended
That's Toby, isn't it?
the wing area. When they extend, they came out and back and made the wing bigger as well as more drag. We can put them in the houses if that noise is bothering you.
Okay.
But anyhow, this is a Kenner. I've owned 2 Kenners.
Why don't you hit the next picture too? I think it's also a picture of it. The right hand arrow, yeah.
This same one.
Yeah.
This is in the hangar right behind where the other picture was taken, and where I had just left it in front of that hangar when I came to McCollum with this airplane, with my home airport in McCollum. But I just bought this airplane up in New York State. I can't think. I'll think of the city in a minute, but big city on the lake in New York State. I had bought it, and John Karlovic, and he had an Apache just like mine, not the one we showed here, but he had one. And he and his wife Audrey flew Gene and I up to New York to pick up this airplane after we bought it, and waited a week or so to get it. And so he carried us up there, and we got in it and got it ready to go, and got in and took off. John stayed overnight, just staying overnight to come home, he said, but the next day he called and said he was staying another day because he bought an old airplane too. That guy that we bought this from had a couple of big hangars full of old, like that, old airplanes.
Wow.
And he was, for some reason, he just decided to start selling them, and we got there, and they were pretty cheap in those days. I don't know what year this was now, back in the 70s or 80s somewhere.
Now, is the Kenner the one you told me was externally lubricated?
Kenner engine, yes.
Through a lot of oil.
Yeah, the case was so porous that it always seeped a little oil on the outside of the case. You wipe it off and be oil there again. It just came right through the
Right through the metal, huh?
That's what I call always pot metal, porous.
Wow.
But it was the first really cheap engine. Kenner engine was the first. All the engines up to then were quite expensive, and also it had a useful life of much longer, even though it was bad metal and everything. He had designed it properly to enhance the life. The overhaul, what we call top overhaul, just cylinder overhauls, was 100 hours of operation, and the major overhaul was 250 hours on this engine. It would go 250 hours before you had to take the crankcase apart. And that was really good news in those days, because on average numbers were like 50 hours and 100 hours instead of 200.
So even though it was noisy and leaked oil, it was very reliable, huh?
Yes, it was always was very reliable. They went on, Bert Kenner went on to design bigger engines, and they got up to 300 horsepower in one Kenner engine. And all of them were good engines for their day, excellent. But then later times, different engine designs got much more life and durability for them and everything. But for the 1920s, it was a very good engine. For the antiquers, it's still a pretty good engine.
Yeah.
And for the antiquers, the Kenner engine is still a mainstay. What I call a mid-ground Kenner engine was 160, 150, 55, or 160. That's 3 powers, same engine. And which was in World War II, was the power plant for the PT-22, the low-wing Ryan airplane.
Yeah,
which
trainer.
Which the Air Force bought a whole lot of them. So they bought a lot of those Kenner engines. So long after the war, in fact, until today, probably a little bit, you can buy a 160 horsepower Kenner engine pretty cheap, and they are very reliable. The main difference, the 150, 155 horsepower did not have top cylinder lubrication between the top of the cylinders, or no oil flow. It had to go down the case and back up. And that was a very poor system, but it worked for the time. But the 160 horsepower changed and joined the cylinders with a tube across there and lubricated the top of the cylinders, so you didn't have to take the rocker box covers off to fly very long.
Good. I'm going to ask, is it Toby?
Yeah. Toby. Come on, Toby.
Okay.
Toby, come on.
Toby in here. He's snoring so loud he's on my video.
Come on,
Can you
Toby.
have Toby in here? He's snoring so loud he's drowning out Jack.
Come on.
Come on, Toby. Also, if you're gonna vacuum again, could you let me know and we'll take
No,
a break
I'm
while you're
too
gonna
late.
vacuum.
I fix the leave. Toby, come
Right
on. Come on, honey. Come on in here, stay with Jean. Let me get my rain hat. I'll fix the head to the grocery store.
Okay.
Excuse me. That's all I need.
All right.
I'll see you shortly.
Toby,
Okay.
wants to hang out
Toby.
with-
Be careful.
Stay in the house. Come on. Come on. I got it.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Next picture.
Got two problems solved, the vacuum cleaner and Toby.
Yeah. Oh, let me stop this, take a checkpoint here.
Okay,